For over 200,000 years, every human being on Earth faced a terrifying daily reality. When the sun dipped below the horizon, total darkness engulfed the world for up to 12 unbroken hours. There were no streetlights, no screens, and no artificial glow illuminating the landscape. Out in the wild savanna, the night belonged to apex nocturnal predators whose vision was far superior to ours. Most modern people assume our ancient ancestors simply crawled into a cave and slept through the dark. We imagine a primitive routine of collapsing at sunset and waking up at dawn out of sheer survival. However, modern evolutionary anthropology tells a dramatically different and far stranger story. Our ancestors did not simply sleep away the darkness. They forged a complex nocturnal culture that permanently altered human brain chemistry, social structure, and cognition. Without the cover of night, human language, storytelling, and self-awareness might never have evolved. To understand what ancient humans did at night, we must first confront an uncomfortable scientific truth. The 8-hour continuous sleep block you struggle to achieve tonight is completely artificial. It is an invention of the industrial era, barely 2 centuries old. Before electric light bulbs rescheduled human biology, our species operated on a nocturnal rhythm that looks bizarre to modern eyes. When darkness fell, ancient humans did not drift into a single uninterrupted coma. Instead, their night was fractured into distinct phases of activity, heightened consciousness, and intense social bonding. Science is now revealing that the anxiety and insomnia many people feel at midnight is not a medical defect. It is the lingering ghost of an evolutionary survival loop designed for prehistoric nightfall. To uncover what actually happened when the sun went down, we must examine the physical environment of the ancient camp, and it all began with humanity's greatest invention, the mastery of fire. In 1992, historian A. Roger Eckhart of Virginia Tech uncovered a forgotten pattern hidden across thousands of historical records. Before the Industrial Revolution, humans practiced what scientists call biphasic sleep. People slept in 2 distinct blocks, separated by a period of calm wakefulness right in the middle of the night. The first phase, known as first sleep, lasted roughly 4 hours from dusk until around midnight. Then, individuals would naturally awaken into a tranquil, meditative state known as the watch. For 1 to 2 hours, people stayed awake inside their dark shelters or around flickering embers. They pondered dreams, spoke quietly, prayed, engaged in intimacy, or synthesized the events of the day. After this quiet window of consciousness, they would drift into second sleep until morning. Eckhарт's research revealed that biphasic sleep was not merely a medieval habit, but an ancient biological default. To test whether this nocturnal pattern was truly encoded in our DNA, neuroscientist Jerome Siegel of UCLA led a landmark study in 2015. His team traveled to remote pre-industrial hunter-gatherer societies in Tanzania, Namibia, and Bolivia. They tracked the sleep architecture of the Hadza, San, and Tsimane peoples using advanced physiological sensors. The findings completely shattered conventional sleep medicine assumptions. Pre-industrial humans rarely go to sleep when it gets dark. They remain awake for roughly 3 hours past sunset. Furthermore, their sleep duration fluctuates naturally with seasonal ambient temperatures rather than rigid clock hours. Their nocturnal environment was dynamic, quiet, and carefully organized around group survival. They did not retreat into isolated bedrooms. They slept together in communal arrangements. This communal nocturnal architecture created a shared biological field that protected the tribe throughout the night. This brings us to one of the most critical survival mechanisms of ancient nightlife, the Sentinel Hypothesis. In 2017, evolutionary anthropologists David Sampson and Charles Nunn at Duke University analyzed sleep synchronization in hunter-gatherer camps. They discovered that across a typical group of 20 people, someone was awake for 99.8% of the night. Out of a 9-hour night, there were only 6 total minutes where the entire group slept simultaneously. This was not an accident. It was an evolutionary adaptation driven by asynchronous chronotypes. Younger individuals naturally stayed awake late into the night, functioning as night owls. Elders naturally awakened hours before dawn, functioning as early risers. This staggered sleep schedule ensured that a sentinel was always alert, watching the perimeter fire and listening for snapping twigs. Human variation in sleep preference was never a disorder. It was an ancient biological defense grid. The control of fire did far more than keep ancient humans warm and roast meat. It fundamentally expanded the human day by creating artificial daylight in a controlled circle. Before fire, Night was a period of absolute vulnerability and icy immobility. After fire, the embers transformed the dark into a sanctuary of human connection. Psychologists note that firelight triggers a specific neurological shift in human perception. Flickering flame light reduces cortisol levels, relaxes skeletal muscles, and induces a mild hypnotic state. In the daytime, human attention was scattered across hunting, foraging, and immediate physical hazards. At night, framed by surrounding pitch darkness, attention collapsed inward into a single shared focal point. The fire pit became the world's very first psychological theater. In 2014, anthropologist Polly Wiesner published a groundbreaking study in the Proceedings of the National Academy of Sciences. She analyzed decades of detailed transcripts recorded among the Juhansi Bushmen of the Kalahari Desert. Wiesner discovered a profound contrast between daytime conversations and nighttime firelight talk. During the day, 81% of conversations were dedicated to economic logistics, practical work, hunting strategy, and personal complaints. But at night, around the fire, daytime topics vanished entirely. Over 81% of nighttime conversations consisted of storytelling, mythology, singing, ancestral history, and social bonding. Night was when humans explained the universe to one another. It was when elders passed down complex cultural knowledge, moral boundaries, and tribal identity. If you are fascinated by how unseen psychological loops shape human nature, subscribe to Behavior Loop right now. We decode these hidden mechanisms every week. During the midnight waking interval, the hour between first and second sleep, a unique neurochemical state took hold. Endocrinologists have discovered that during this midnight transition, the pituitary gland secretes elevated levels of prolactin. Prolactin is the hormone responsible for feelings of deep tranquility, emotional safety, and reflective calm. Unlike the hectic alertness of daytime, midnight consciousness was quiet and introspective. Ancient humans used this twilight hour to process vivid dreams, reflect on mortality, and consolidate long-term memory. In many ancient cultures, dreams experienced during first sleep were discussed during the watch before returning to second sleep. This midnight pause allowed the human brain to bridge the conscious mind with the subterranean unconscious. Night was not dead time. It was the birthplace of human introspection and abstract thought. Yet, prehistoric nights were far from peaceful poetry. Night was also a battleground of psychological terror. Human eyes lack a tapetum lucidum, the reflective layer that allows big cats to hunt in the dark. In absolute darkness, human visual acuity drops to near zero, leaving us functionally blind. To compensate for this sensory deficit, evolution equipped the human brain with hyperactive agency detection. When sensory input is minimal, the brain overinterprets faint sounds. A rustling leaf becomes a crouching leopard. Shadows thrown by flickering firelight transformed ordinary rocks and branches into looming monsters. This neurochemical hypervigilance kept our ancestors alive, but it also birthed our deepest psychological fears. The unseen predators of the prehistoric night became the demonology, ghosts, and dark mythology of human culture. For hundreds of thousands of years, this nocturnal balance remained unbroken. Then, in the late 19th century, humanity executed a massive, unsanctioned biological experiment. The widespread adoption of gas lighting and Thomas Edison's incandescent electric bulb severed our connection to the dark. With the flip of a switch, night was forcibly illuminated and turned into productive daytime hours. Factories demanded round-the-clock labor, consolidating human sleep into a single compressed 8-hour block. The natural midnight waking hour, the watch, was labeled as abnormal insomnia and medicalized as a disorder. Artificial blue light flooded human eyes, suppressing melatonin production and disrupting circadian master clocks. In less than a century, we dismantled a sleep architecture that had sustained our species for millennia. If you wake up at 3 o'clock in the morning with your mind racing, you are experiencing the ghost of this historical rupture. When modern humans wake up at 3 a.m. in a pitch-black bedroom, we panic. We check our phones, look at the clock, calculate how few hours of sleep remain, and flood our bloodstream with adrenaline. We treat a natural biological awakening as a personal failure. However, if you placed an ancient human in that exact same moment, they would feel completely normal. They would recognize it as the tranquil pause between first and second sleep, a time to breathe, reflect, and exist without pressure. Our modern distress does not stem from waking up in the dark. It stems from our belief that we should never be awake at night. We transformed an evolutionary sanctuary of reflection into a prison of middle-of-the-night anxiety. Ancient humans did not merely survive the night, they used the dark to build the foundation of human identity. In the stillness of the midnight watch, beneath unpolluted starlit skies and beside fading embers, we learned to contemplate. We invented art, told our first stories, bonded our communities, and mapped our place in the cosmos. When we banished darkness with artificial light, we gained productivity, but we lost a vital mental sanctuary. The next time you find yourself awake in the quiet hours of the night, do not fight the darkness. Remember that for thousands of generations, your ancestors were awake in that exact same shadow, watching the embers burn. What unseen habit or modern loop disconnects you from your evolutionary nature? Let us know in the comments below. Subscribe to Behavior Loop to keep exploring the hidden architecture of human nature.